My reason for saving and investing so much is so that my children can have opportunities that I didn't have.
Kids are expensive.
Yeah, kids are really expensive. Starting your children off right leads to generational wealth.
If the amount of money you're saving each month, each year doesn't hurt, you're not saving enough.
We didn't have a car. I rode a bike everywhere.
We didn't go out to eat for 2 years. We didn't go on vacation.
We were actually saving something like 70, 80% of income.
I said no for 2 years so I can say yes for the rest of my life.
It's simple, not necessarily easy.
Make sure you have reasons, clear reasons for why you are saving and investing so much. Once you have a reason, there's nothing you can't do.
And I want my children to do better than me. That is.
Okay, pause. Once you have a reason, there's nothing you can't do. This is an embodied belief, understanding, value. That is true for me as well. Once it becomes embodied and it is a real reason why, nothing can get in my way. Once I made this decision financially, and I know it's a little difficult because I don't want to play into the hardcore like capitalistic game at the expense of others. But when I became like real for me, when I became real for my partner, we just did the budget this morning before stream today. We like sat down and looked at, how much we spent on groceries this week, how much we're doing for stuff, because we keep it all in a book. And it feels really rewarding to be like, oh my gosh, like we got this done, we reached this goal, we saved this. And it's really dollar by dollar or euro by euro. Like I know when I was younger, and I know people are really struggling right now, so I hear you, but it was really hard for me to understand that I really was lacking a true why about why I was saving in the first place. So right when it became serious, everything changed and everything became possible. And I do see a difference because math is math is math. But math is math is math, but you do have to make more money. You have to make just enough. And that dilemma is like, you might not be making it. So if you're making like less than 50K, everything is going to be impossible. Like unless you're living in an environment where everything is much, much less. But if you have to at least, in my mind, be making 50K to begin to save in America, averagely speaking, right? Averagely speaking, of course, that could differ maybe, but generally speaking, let's just say 50K is the requirement. Until you figure out your why, right? It's like you won't even know how to even make that money or think about, I need to make this much money minimum, and everything will change. So like when I was making 20K a year, like there was nothing left. There was just like no way, right? When I was making 50K a year, I was still struggling, but that's because my mental health was also struggling. So once I got my mental health under control, making a minimum of 50K, everything became easier, but it still is a struggle. You still don't go out to eat. You don't go on vacation. You save. You have a budget for your groceries for the week. Like everything is budgeted. Every dollar is assigned a role, right? And that's what I think he means. At least that's how I heard it.
The goal.
I grew up in a trailer home, right? About the poorest housing that you can find in the United States. You can picture growing up in Minnesota, the middle of winter, and your parents are struggling to pay the heating bill. My earliest memories are deprivation.
I grew up in Taiwan, and my parents had to send us to an orphanage. They couldn't afford to feed us to get us a place to live.
My parents grew up, not having a lot of money. My mother had 8 other siblings living in Statesville, North Carolina. We had everything that we needed, but our middle class as an African-American family is different than the American middle class.
My parents were always very frugal, and they didn't give me any money. So I decided maybe I'll go to McDonald's and I'll try to get a job at McDonald's for $4.25 an hour while also being able to eat as much free apple pie as possible.
Within the African-American community, a lot of them grew up not trusting banks because a lot of times they couldn't put their money in banks. So they carry a lot of cash, and you'll find a lot of older African-Americans carrying cash all the time now.
I am afraid of spending money. And then I met him. He has the same mindset. So we were like, oh, we are like perfect match. We don't want to spend money.
I remember being embarrassed, sadly, when I saw my classmates. And I look back upon that with a little bit of shame because why would it be embarrassing to be a 14, 15-year-old boy trying to make your own money and be more free?
I was the first person to go to college and graduate, so I'm a first generation college student. I went to South Carolina State University on a full ride tennis scholarship. If I didn't get that tennis scholarship, I would have had to take out a lot of loans.
I chose to attend the College of William and Mary because at the time, the tuition was only $2,800 a year. Other private schools were about $20,000 a year.
I remember when I was in college, like many times I don't have enough money for food. Like sometimes I'll just have a hard-boiled egg for lunch. It's quite enough. Yes, yeah. It was pretty tough.
A lot of my college experience was I have to get good grades because I have these massive student loans. And if I'm unable to pay them, then it's back to poverty. I became largely a workaholic.
I ended up doing 55 interviews total to finally land my job at Goldman Sachs. The base salary was $40,000. And $40,000 living in Manhattan, even back then, didn't go very far.
The job when I was laid off in 2008 was pharmaceutical sales. So I put so many hours in, I've worked so many years, and just like that, it's done. It just felt like the world started crashing.
I was laid off. And it really sunk in that I need to be prepared for that point in time where I'll be able to take care of myself whether the work's there or not.
You know what? Let me just tell you, I remember, growing up in the suburb or in the culture that I did, fast food jobs were sort of like for kids, or like people struggling, or like people who kind of like, it's a dead end job, right? That was the culture. And I remember when the crash had happened, seeing my brother's friends' parents who had lost their jobs working at fast food restaurants, and thinking to myself, like, they went from salaried positions in quote good companies to working fast food. And I'm so proud of them for doing what was necessary to even make anything in the first place. But how devastating that must have been to a lot of people's not only pride, but the reality of the situation. Or I have friends who like came home from college to see a parent at home and said like, hey, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at work? Only to find out their parent had lost their job and didn't tell them because they didn't want them to worry. Or, even my dad's company, definitely like it suffered for a while. There was like a few years there where like it wasn't bringing in an income, and my parents were in like crazy amounts of credit card debt, and they had managed to be one of the few families who kept their home through the process. And thank God they did, because now it's paid off in a great neighborhood, and it all worked out. But I remember that there was a struggle, right? You refinance the home, you do all these things to try to keep yourself above water. There's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made. But yeah, like it was really rough, and it will be like that for a lot of people forever, right? Like nothing is guaranteed. But I think there's something to be said about, and again, maybe this goes back to the extrospection conversation, as it always does, that if you really recognize like you're an evolved animal on a planet, you're trying to make it the best way, like as much as anybody else, it can help center you when things get a little stressed. I had a friend call me the other day and say like, bro, or they didn't call me, they messaged me, but they said, bro, I'm so stressed. Like I just got a surprise, like $30 increase on one of my monthly bills. It's like, fuck, every time I think I'm ahead, it's an extra $30 here and there. Even the other day, my phone bill came in at a much higher bill. And I was like, what? And so I got on the phone. I was like, what is this? And they were like, oh, you got, I have what's this called? Automatic payments on everything. And I wanted to change the date for my automatic payment because I get paid basically once a month from YouTube. And I wanted it to come after I got paid, right? Make it easier on me. And I went to go change the takeout date. And that caused a $25 fee. And I was like, And so I called them and I said, take off this fee right now. And they were saying, I told them, I was like, I've been with you forever. Take off this fee. And they took it off. I'm very nice on the phone to customer service people, just FYI, or even on the typing. I said, look, this was really painful. The economy is really bad. People are struggling. This is not fair, because all I was trying to do was pay my bill on time like I normally do. I always pay my bill on time. Please take off this fee. It would really help me. And they're like, yeah, of course, because ultimately they want to keep your business. You know what I mean? That's why I say be polite but firm. Because these people don't be mean to these people. They're just working their jobs. But also like they'll help you out, bro. And they're not the ones who put the automatic fee. It's a robot on a website that like makes the decision. You know what I mean? So be nice to the workers and they will help you out. I mean, I've even said this at the IRS when I call the IRS, for my taxes and stuff. They're usually really nice to me. I try to like humanize everybody through this process. But as long as you're nice to people, I think people come through, because they get it. They're struggling too. But yeah, that was so surprising to me. And I was like very frustrated by that because again, for us, like every dollar has an assignment. And so any extra money that comes out of somewhere has to come out of someone's like some budget. And so I was like, hey, you can't. No. So anyways, they took off the fee and it all worked out. But it was like, one of those things that, it's hard because until you know why you're doing it, it's really hard to stay motivated. And it's really hard when it feels like it's never enough. It's never enough,
Very quickly, when I started working, I realized I couldn't last at this job. I was getting in at 5:30 a.m., leaving after 7 p.m. And so I decided, okay, in order for me to escape this job one day, I needed a certain amount of money to cover my lifestyle and expenses.
I didn't even realize that we were $50,000 in debt. And then I looked at, oh, your student loan is $25,000. This car that we just bought a year ago is $25,000. And so I started to think about what do we need to be doing? Reality started setting in, and I was like, what are we gonna do?
See how easy it was to be $50,000 in debt? Your car and your school loans, boom, there's 50 grand. And then on top of that, they want you to have a 30% down payment for your house to avoid fees on $1 million home in the suburb that used to be $250,000. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Really important is to make sure you have reasons, clear reasons for why you are saving and investing so much. Once you have a reason, there's nothing you can't do.
I wrote out something called a dream sheet, and it was our short-term, intermediate, and long.
By the way, same with like not shopping at certain places, or same with, how you consume stuff. If you really have a value, you know what I mean? If you really have, like, this is why I say, like, are these your values, your morals, or are these like things you'd like to get done? Because if it's something you really believe, you just won't do it. You know what I mean? Like but it's hard to really understand that, like, oh, I thought this was my value until I got tempted. Or, and again, I'm all about harm reduction. So as an example, I'm not shopping at Amazon, but maybe there might be a reason to buy something off Amazon in the future. I would still have to counterbalance that by harm reduction. Because again, same with animal products. Like I've been almost a year doing plant-based, but that doesn't mean that I haven't eaten a donut or two during this process, but I'm still counting it. I know some people are like really strict about it, where they're like, oh, you're like, I wouldn't count it if I had anything, but like, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it so I can never eat plant-based or never eat animal product. I'm not trying to be like 15 years, no animal products. It's not a competition. I'm just trying to be less bad every day. So I'm plant-based. It's the best way to say it, or generalize that I don't eat it. Right. And that's true for 99% of my diet. Right. On occasion, like I said, I might have a donut, but like I haven't even done that in forever. So it's, it's one of those things where I'm not trying to, yes, exactly, Chad. Gold star ain't the goal. I'm not trying to like get a gold star. I'm trying to just be less shitty every day. And like that process takes a while, but there are certain things that are like no go ever under any circumstances. And that is what it really comes down to. But yeah, like knowing why you're doing something is everything.
Long-term dreams, because I say to myself, we're not going to be able to do this if we don't have anything in front of us to look forward to. My child was 2 years old at the time when I wrote this. I said to myself, my first child was born to debt and my second child would not be.
I put together like a 50-page business plan about how I could go from having a net worth of roughly zero at that point to having enough where savings and investments would cover my normal cost of living.
He presented me his 40 pages of research. He's like, you know what? There's a thing called a financial independent. We can like work together on this project. I was like, okay, it's convincing. Maybe we can try.
So I did pretty simple back of the envelope calculations.
I love that they're working together too. I think that's so important, is to make sure that whoever you are married to is on the same page as you, because you don't want to be in conflict with your partner. I've seen so many marriages break up. So many people get divorced. So many people have issues in their relationships because one partner wants to spend this much and one partner doesn't want to spend this much. And it can go either way. Like, again, it's about being responsible, but you have to be make sure you are on the same page as the person you are doing life with.
An Excel spreadsheet on how much I needed to be happy and comfortable and maybe to raise a family. And I felt $3 million would be it.
I needed to save at least 50% of my income. Within 6 months of finishing the business plan, I had sold my house, sold my car. Like I rented a room in somebody else's home and I replaced my car with a bicycle.
I needed all of my money to go towards paying off $50,000 a day. I was selling TVs, selling a microwave I found in the closet. I wanted to be free. That's the way my mindset was each and every day. We didn't go out to eat for 2 years. We didn't go on vacation for 2 years. Nobody got a gift, not Valentine's Day, not anniversary, not Christmas, nobody. That's why the $50,000 a day got paid off in 2 years.
Over like the 12, 13 years or so, we were going from a point where those last few years, we were actually saving something like 70, 80% of income.
And so I started with about 20% saving rate. And then I slowly ramped it up. I was saving 70 to 80%.
Whoa.
If the amount of money you're saving each month, each year doesn't hurt, you're not saving enough.
Wait,
let's listen to that again.
If the amount of money you're saving each month, each year doesn't hurt, you're not saving enough.
This is I will say, this is a pretty hardcore goal. So do not, if you are in debt and you're trying to, relax, you're not ready for this level. Okay. This is a very motivated, high focus lock-in. Okay. You're not ready for it. I'm telling you right now, girlies, if you are still buying from Amazon and getting Uber Eats, you are not ready. Okay. This is an incredible dedication and it's possible. I've seen people do it before. It's definitely a thing. You're not ready and that's okay. To be honest, we're not even doing this. We're not doing this level. But we're like somewhere in the middle, if that makes sense, where we definitely still, maybe go out for a cappuccino, which is like €6 every like few months or something. But in general, it's true that we are being very frugal. Like actually, my bestie's, her parents, when she came to visit me, her parents gave us a wedding gift. And we took the wedding gift and we spent $30-ish on a date night. And then we put the rest towards debt. And I was like, we're so responsible. And it was a very generous couple $100 or a couple €100. It was very generous. But yeah, we spent 30 of it on a date and then we put the rest towards debt. And I felt like such a grown up. I was like, who are we? And like, we sat down as a family and really decided like, what do we want to do? And her parents would be very impressed with this decision, I'm sure, because they're very into frugality and saving and all that stuff. And then splurging, like buy yourself something, but also save. And we were so proud of ourselves. And that's the point, is like, we do have responsibilities towards our future goals. And that felt like a really good decision to make. And also even our budget of €50 a week for food, that it also needs to be healthy. So we went to the lowest possible amount we could pay per week for food and still get our nutritional needs, because there's no point to not getting our nutritional needs just to save money. So it has to be like in conjunction with, so it, again, positive symbiosis. And so remember, when you're making your budget, not to starve yourself, not to punish yourself. You should feel it though. You should feel the responsibility of saving. You should feel like, damn, I really wish I could get that, but I'm not going to get it. But also get excited about the fact that you're reaching different goals, right?
80%. If the amount of money you're saving each month, each year doesn't hurt, you're not saving enough.
We write down every single expenses, even just $1. When we spend them, we will just write it down to calculate it, because we
100%.
We both grew up in poverty, so we are used to have no money. So we are okay to accept that kind of lifestyle.
Once the debt was going, the investing kicked back up. I was still in corporate America, so I was investing into my 401k. I had a Roth IRA.
What I try to do is have a diverse.
Ooh, I like this, chat. That I've heard that if change doesn't affect you, you are not changing. Exactly. If you are changing, it will show up in your life. Right? Mm-hmm.
Portfolio of about 30% in public equities, 30 to 40% in real estate and private real estate, about 20% in alternatives, and the rest.
Let's listen to this again.
What I try to do is have a diversified portfolio of about 30% in public equities, 30 to 40% in real estate and private real estate, about 20% in alternatives, and the rest in low risk or risk-free assets like treasury bonds and cash.
So there's going to be a dilemma here with like, how do you invest in life for your family without it coming at the expense of somebody else's family? And this is really hard because, and I'm not there financially. We're not there as a family financially where like we would even have the option to like invest in like Meta or something. But it is something to think about, like maybe investing in your Roth because that's your retirement, but you're still playing to the market, or putting your money in a high yield savings account, something like that. Or if you're doing something like, buying property, making sure you're not a evil landlord. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be careful about the idea of like, depending on where your values lie with money, is like, even if we bought a house and we could rent it out, I think about that all the time. Like if we could afford a house enough, like 2 houses, and we rented out one of the houses, who would we rent it out to? Friends and family at like a very low rate so they can get ahead, and just pay the basics? Or like, what would we be doing? Because like, if you're trying to make money off of being a landlord and that's your income, 1, that's very difficult to do. And 2, it's very hard to do it ethically. So you have to be very careful. But if you just buy property and sit on it and sell it later, but even that, when you buy property and then you sit on it, you're putting the neighborhood that place where you don't even live, you're almost like in a way like slow burn gentrifying the land. So like it's very kind of difficult you know what I mean? When you take from locals where you don't live and you take their land and you buy it and then you don't do anything with it, you're also not beautifying the neighborhood. You're not contributing to the neighborhood. So there's a lot that goes into this.
Overall investments are fairly simple. Everything we own is just in index funds. There's zero management. I don't have to pay attention to anything.
I was a little sad we didn't invest in Bitcoin 10 years ago.
Right? Yeah.
We missed our chance.
Yeah.
My reason.
What, by the way, I'll never forget dating a guy in my early 20s and him being like, we should mine Bitcoin. I'm like, what is that? I just don't get it. To be honest, what do you think about that idea? Like, I'm not sure that would have been the greatest thing to do, though. Of course, you also want to adapt and accept that the future will be different. I don't want to hold on to the past. So then I run into this problem where like, I don't want to stay attached to the past. You know what I mean, girls? Like, I don't really value tradition because I value tradition emotionally. I don't value tradition literally because I think tradition is oppression. But at the same time, I can value tradition as a form of liberation if you can prove to me your tradition is liberating. But also, I don't want to sign up for every new scummy scheme like this crypto stuff that keeps coming out because that feels like, well, that's completely against the values that I hold, right? So that's like, you know, what do we do here, right? Chat says, what tradition related to Bitcoin? Sorry. Meaning, do you invest in Bitcoin because it's the newest thing and it's real, or it's not real and you don't invest in it? Do you hold on to like traditional ways of making money? I was watching the Selling Manhattan show, which this show gives me the biggest ick, and I'm still watching it. And he sells a property and his commission is paid in Bitcoin. And I'm like, and that's the thing is like, some people are like, oh yeah, you can pay me in Bitcoin. And I'm like, is this the future? Like, is it really happening? Because in my head, it's still not happening. In my head, crypto is not working, but maybe it really is the future. Who knows?
For saving and investing so much is so that my children can have opportunities that I didn't have, that my parents didn't have. But once I had children, oh my gosh, I really rethought about how much risk I should take because, okay, I can't be that cavalier with my investments anymore because if I lost it all, then my family would be suffering.
To have a child,
Cutie patootie.
really, I need to be ready to spend, a couple $100,000 over the next 18 years plus college, and
oh, I want to hear that number again.
Spend a couple $100,000 over the next 18 years plus college, and just coming to terms with that in advance.
Okay, pause. Now imagine, right? Because I think this is what people are missing. My parents did not save anything for college. My parents had 10 kids and never once did it occur to them to save for college or cars or anything, right? My parents never had it in their mind that they would help us with they did not even think about it. It is not a part of their belief system, okay? My brother has 5 kids. He is not saving for their college. Now look at these families who are literally thinking about their kids' college. My bestie's parents who paid for her college in cash. All her apartments, her car, her education was paid for. She didn't ever have to think about it. Not once did she think about it. Okay, she still had to go to school and get the degree, of course. She still worked hard, but like she never even had to think about it. You know what I'm saying? So like just think about it. Think about the differences and where you're at in your life. Just think about that difference. Okay? Like again, I think people forget, like you have to remember, okay? Like we're not all starting off in the same bubble. Okay, we're not all starting off with the same starting point, right? And Selling Manhattan or Owning Manhattan, the one with Ryan Serhant. Yeah, you're right. The one with Ryan Serhant. That one, whatever it's called, Manhattan, whatever. I watch all the realtor shows. I love learning about realty, but realtors. But I hate the bubble. I think it's disgusting bubble. I think the amount of money that they are exchanging between themselves and clients is disgusting. I think it's so gluttonous, but I watch it. But I do. $60 million for a penthouse in New York City. What the fuck? Who needs that? And he's a billionaire. Who needs a $60 million house? But do I watch it? I do, girls. Like I said, I am obsessed with the capitalism bubble, and I think it's disgusting, but I'm obsessed with it. I think it's interesting. That's why I wish Chelsea Fagan would go back to actually talking about math and numbers instead of interpersonal relationships. Can we please talk about numbers and interest rates?
My son is 17. He'll be graduating in 2027.
Just all the accomplishments and stuff over here.
My daughter plays tennis, and she's 13. I want my children to do better than me. That is the goal.
My daughter's 5, my son is 8. And I really, really try to make them focus on work and earning what they deserve and earning what they want.
Our kids, one is 10, one is 5. We have a mommy and daddy bank. So we will track all the allowance that people give him on his.
Also, please notice how these couples differ from the couples you hear about on YouTube who are like, we have separate bank accounts and my money is his money or his money is my money and my money is my money. Like, look at the difference between these couples and those couples. Look at the way they talk about it. Look at the way they literally talk about being a team versus these other couples, you know, who are just like, marriage is so bad for women. Marriage is so bad for men. These couples are just like, we're going to be wealthy and stable and our kids will do well. And then they sit down and do it. And I'm like, there's a part of it that I like that. I like that. I like the energy of like locking in, focusing on our family and just getting our kids prepared for the world because God knows we brought them into it.
Birthday or Christmas, I'll put them in that book. And then we will give him some interest. And then he can spend half of his interest on the thing he really wants. But we also told him if he doesn't spend them and keep putting into the bank, he will have more. It's kind of giving him an idea of investment.
Nice.
Both of my children have Roth IRAs themselves. They don't really know that,
Nice.
but they have them. And I put
Like this as an example. My parents never invested in my Roth as a kid, but my friend's parents did. Right? Like my friend's parents had investments for her before she was even an adult. Again, like, and I understand. That's why, you know, the reason I mentioned Chelsea Fagan is because she's the only progressive financial person that I watch. And so that's like, all the other financial people I watch are not progressives. And so it's like, it's very different. But that's why she is like, hey, you need to invest, you know, like your kids need help, like people need help. And that's why I do think it's possible. I just think like it takes a level of knowing your why to really make it make sense. Right. I think that's what's so difficult. Like, do you know why you're saving, why you're doing this for your kids, and what standard of living should kids even assume to have, right? Like, again, I want my kids to be better than I was, right? Which means it would have to be this level. Like, this level of parenting would be better than what I was raised with. And at the same time, right? At the same time, it's like that conversation about whether or not poor people have kids. The question isn't whether or not poor people should have kids. That's a bad question. The question is, what life should the standard of what standard of living should kids be expected to have? And can you provide that for your kids? Okay. And like the answer for a lot of us is no. But look at these parents, right? They didn't come from a wealthy background, but they figured out how to give that standard of living to their kids because they were locked in, right? So they were locked in and it was a value of theirs. They really thought about it. Most people are not thinking about it. Most people are literally like, that's what I'm saying. Like even Christmas and stuff, especially when you have young kids, they're genuinely not going to know they're not getting Christmas gifts when they're like very, very young. You could get them 2 gifts and they would feel more than like rich. It's like your kids aren't going to even know yet. And those are the times when you should be thinking about it before you have kids. But like you can raise kids with good enough and still put them in this like saving mindset, which is what the parents are doing. They're teaching them how to save, you know? And I think that's really important. So it's about what values are we also going to teach the kids and not come from a place of scarcity, but a place of wisdom, right? Like we're not giving you one gift this year because we're poor. We're giving you one gift this year because we don't believe in overconsumption. You know, I hope you enjoy this gift. I really put a lot of thought into it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's really going to be good for you, you know? Versus these parents who make YouTube videos or TikTok videos, which I hope are fake, of 500 gifts for their kids for Christmas. Like, come on now. All of that's just going to end up in a landfill. What are we doing here?
money into them as well. And then, of course, they have their own savings account that they are able to feed into as well.
They have small Roth IRAs and they have small 529s. And everything else will just be when we die, they'll...
Don't tell them that.
Yeah, don't tell them that.
They definitely are going to find out now.
But here's the tricky thing. If you have all this money at 25 years old, you might not try as hard. You might not work as hard. And you might not appreciate the things you have. You might not want to make something of yourself.
I do think that they, may feel like, oh, money is just everywhere. They think that with me as well as their father, and we have to put them back in their place. But I think what ends up helping is that a lot of times for things that they want, they pay for it.
Mommy, can you buy this for me? I said, sure, with your money. He said, oh, no, it's okay.
Yeah, actually, my brother's doing that with his kids, which I really like, is they can earn money. And same thing my parents did with us, is like we were allowed to earn our own money, and then we could buy whatever we wanted. So my parents never took our money. Our money was our money. our parents really encouraged us to get summer jobs, to work on the weekends, but also they expected us to pay for our own phones, get our own cars. Now, I was lucky. My dad put $2,000 down on my first car, but also, and I think this is the problem, is that I do think though my dad had really good intentions about getting me that car, I didn't pick it out. It wasn't my choice. I was not financially asked about that car. All my dad asked me one day was like, what car payment can you afford? I was like, well, I'm working 3 jobs out of high school. I could probably afford $300 a month. And then he surprised me with this car where he did put $2,000 down, but then I had to pay off the rest. And it was it was a Nissan Sentra and it was brand new. And it was a really bad financial decision. But see how your dad, your parents want to spoil you, but it's not like he paid for it. Thank you for the down payment, but also I had to pay the rest of it off and it was over $20,000. You know what I mean? It was really hard. It was a really hard fight. And then what happened? We had a falling out and I lost one of my jobs because one of my jobs was with him. And then I moved living situations. I was just so financially in the hole in so many big ways. You know what I mean? And so as much as our parents want to that's why I say I did not grow up financially smart. My parents did not get their finances together until much later. And now they're much better off. But my parents were also late starters. They truly did not understand money until I don't even know, 10, 15 years ago. And I was way out of the house by that point, right? Yeah. Not to mention paying insurance as well. Exactly. Not to mention I was paying insurance and everything else. So it's I appreciate the gesture, but holy fuck. Versus my farm brother, he graduated high school with his savings and bought a van that was beat up for $500, and it was his car for 3 years. And he got mileage on that car. It was his car. And that's what I should have done. I should have gone that direction, but I didn't. I didn't go that direction. And I really think those are the things I wish I had known when I was younger. I wish I was better off, but my farm brother was what is he? Five in line? 5. He's number 5 in line. So he really got the most lessons watching the older kids fuck up. And then he was okay, I got this. And he made the best financial decisions out of all the siblings, generally speaking, generally.
So in terms of talking about money with my children, our children, it's that, look, money doesn't grow on trees. You have to earn everything. You cannot develop an entitled mentality where, hey, life is so easy, life is so good, because life is hard.
Kids mostly learn their parents' values and things by observation versus direct lesson.
There we go.
What I've done is try to get my children involved in the act of maintaining rental properties.
Chad says my brother-in-law got their son a BMW which he crashed, and then they bought him another one. I worry for him. I worry for everybody around him. He's crashing into people. No, that's horrible. See, that's that entitlement thing that they're worried about their kids having. That's horrible. Damn.
For example. So I bring them along
okay, hold on, let's see.
in the act of maintaining rental properties, for example. So I bring them along, I get them to do a lot of the landscaping. When they see their parents getting down and dirty and doing the work, hopefully that builds that work ethic and that appreciation of money in the future.
For me, I think I will have my kids prepared for, well prepared for their own independent financial path, so they don't need to depend on us.
What are we doing as parents, financially or morally or anything like that?
That's a point that's good though. Because if you don't raise your kid, that saying, if you don't raise your kids, if you don't raise your kids, you'll raise your grandkids. These parents are saying, I will invest up front in my children so they don't need me later on. And hopefully they don't even need their kids, right? It's about a healthy environment of we'll help each other. But I never want my kids, it really bothers me that there are children right now who are so stressed about paying their financial bills for their parents because they know their parents didn't prepare. That is so frustrating for me. Or our kids who are raised poorly, so their parents into their 80s and 90s have to pay their bills because their kids never got their shit together. Guys, we all have to get our shit together. We all have to get our shit together, right? Do your absolute fucking best and get your shit together. That way, when people help you in the future, it's a pleasure versus a burden. Okay, I hate watching grown ass kids put that pressure on their parents, and I hate parents putting that pressure on their kids. I hate it. It's so deeply unethical.
That if we're not
immoral.
Teaching them to be better, and then they should teach their children, if they decide to have them, to be better than them.
I love that she said if they decide to have them. Love that.
Some of the life lessons that I took from my mom about money is just knowing what you're doing with it.
No, pause. Said I will go homeless before asking my son for help. He's a kid now, but future speaking. Well, that's not healthy either, girl. Lock in. No, you can't be unhoused. Nobody should be unhoused. Now imagine putting that emotional burden on your kid where their parent is now unhoused. Do you think that's not going to emotionally burden your kid knowing their mom is on the streets? No. No, you just have to prepare. But I would be so upset if my parents did not ask me to stay at my place, because why would you rather be unhoused? No. Lock in, girls. Lock in. No. Absolutely not. Let your kid help you, right? Like that's your kid. You're his mom. You know what I mean? Like, you want your kid to sleep good at night, right? Knowing that their mom isn't, in these bad positions.
And, not just using it whenever you feel like it, because it's not unlimited.
I would rather live the way where people give me stuff, buy me stuff.
And that's the difference between the two of them.
This is Julian. He is 10 years old. He's a 5th grader now. And over here, this one, come here, baby. This one is Jaden.
These are neurodivergent kids right here, baby.
He's 5 years old.
I just feel like I don't want to do this. But
The no filter at all. I love it.
When I got like 15, when I could actually start like working and stuff, I brought my game system down there, and my dad and my mom was just like, it was waiting too long to pay for the game. And I was like, I'm just gonna pay for it myself. And that money left the bank. That was definitely a hit. It was definitely a week or two where I didn't spend any money.
we have starting money, and at the end of every month, we get 5% of the money that we have and add it to it. And like all the money that we get, we can use half of it to spend, and the other half to just can't do anything with it.
I would want to have my own business, because my mom has her own business. Like, I would want to have my own business, like where I sell stuff and actually be successful in it. I love to help people like with tennis and stuff like that. And I just want money in 20 years.
I hope I would be a millionaire. I'm trying to work towards it, but I would just be glad having a great financial situation where I could provide for my family, and hopefully, I was thinking about this the other day, retire my parents.
In 20 years, I see them where they see.
The dream of like retiring my parents is so funny to me, because I think it's like a fantasy sold through capitalism in a sense, because again, like this dream of like your kids spending their dream, like how many of your parents retired their parents? Let's ask it that way. How many of your parents directly retired their parents? Right? So why are we sold this dream of retiring our parents? Because the system hasn't done its job by protecting seniors. So now it falls on the burden of the children to retire their parents instead of the system that is so fucking wealthy actually supporting elders. You know what I mean? And that's the thing.
Themselves. And so I would definitely just support them in whatever they will be wanting to do.
Okay, let's see. Life
I
today.
was able to achieve financial freedom at the age of 34 and become a stay-at-home dad and author.
I am retired.
I have a full-time job taking care of 2 kids and a husband.
The fear that drove me a lot in my 20s is completely gone.
Now, keep in mind, guys, they are not living a lavish life probably. They might say they're retired, but they could be living off 2K, 2.5K, 3K a month, right? Just because they're retired doesn't mean they're living, even if they have $1 million in investments, they're living off the interest, right? So they're not probably living off of a lot of money. And that's the thing that people have to understand. Even if you're living off interest, you have to have a large sum of money to live off a minimal interest. Let's say 60K a year, 70K a year. But that means you're not actually living above that. So don't think, oh, I'm retired, now I'm rich. Like, no, like you might be independent, but you're living off minimal income, which is why my partner and I say our goal is to think if we lived off this income forever, including if we ever made enough, quote, to live off investments, we would still be living in this lifestyle. We're not trying to live a lavish lifestyle. We're trying to live a stable lifestyle. So, you know what I mean? That's the thing, okay? I'll link this video after it's done, guys. Thank you for asking. I'll link it.
My day feels like it really begins when school gets out because I'm a coach on our son's baseball team.
Cute.
So we have baseball practice and soccer practice going on.
Mr. Pitch.
We do a lot of moving kids around to and from sports before dinner and then getting ready for bed.
I describe myself as a mompreneur. I pretty much tailor my business around being a mom. And that's how I built it over the last 15 years.
Great. Love that. If I had kids, that's kind of what I would have done. Obviously, my partner would have been a stay-at-home partner, but that's what I would have done too. I would have thought about like working and having kids.
Traveling all around the world, sharing my story, how I paid off the 50 grand of debt in 2 years. In 5 years, I plan on being a millionaire.
Money is essential for living
See how she said she's not even a millionaire yet? Just like keep that in mind.
a comfortable life. But once you have enough, please think about the other more important things in life.
Money means to me, it's just a tool. It's nothing else other than that. It's to make sure the lights stay on, and make sure that we have a roof over our head, that we eat, because that's just the way the world is.
Like most tools, they're good for one thing, right? You're not going to use a hammer to fix a window, right? But if you apply it towards the right things, it can be very, very useful.
I think everybody can have financial freedom and time freedom at different levels. You don't actually have to be a millionaire. You can have $100,000 in the bank. You have $40,000 in the bank. If you're able, as a parent, to be able to go to any event that they have freely without worrying about getting fired or worrying about your money being taken, that is financial freedom. That is millionaire status.
I really don't know how we could fit jobs into our schedule.
Yeah, I used to work from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., even longer.
And that's the thing. So there are some people who, if they were living at home all day, would do nothing, right? And that, I think that's going to happen to some people, but I think most people want to be like this. If their values are foundationed and like really thoughtful, there's so much to do. Like my brother works from home and his wife is a stay-at-home mom, but they are so busy all of the time. They are always doing things. There's just like not enough hours in the day for all of the socializing and events and kids' education and like all of the things. Like they are always doing stuff. And I think there's like something about that because you realize how like time consuming life is. Now imagine you're a parent who's working 2 jobs just to put food on the table and you want to be there for your kid. And that's why I say there is a deeply sick thing happening with the system the way that it is, because you should be spending this much time with your kids. The goal should be spending as much time with your kids as possible. The consequence of being a stay-at-home parent, though, is that financial instability, right? And that's the fear. The fear is that, can I afford to be a stay-at-home mom? Or in 20 years, am I going to regret this? So like, it's like eradicating that fear. And I think that's what's so hard to do. And so, yeah, I don't appreciate the conversations around money that are like all fear-based, like marriage is bad for men. What about divorce court? Or women are disadvantaged by marriage. Have money stashed away. You are all so unhealthy. You first need to ask yourself, am I healthy enough to even think about longevity? Because like if you move this fear into your 80s or 90s, like girl, I don't got time for it. You might as well not get married or do these things. But these people, at least by the way that it's being edited, the energy I'm getting from them is like they're not even thinking about that. See how like at least by the edit, none of these couples are even talking about that. They're just focused on their kids, the education, and having a better life. These are so normie. These people are so normie that they're like, do you know what I'm saying? Now, of course, we don't know the inner workings. We don't know the trauma behind it. We don't know what's happening in everyone's families. We don't know. But the point is like, you know, it's not negative. It's not like fear-based. Like Chelsea Fagan will say stuff like, she'll say stuff like, marriage is such a disadvantage for women. Like it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll make. Yeah, girl, we know, girl. But also, like, I don't even know why. Like, talk about it from a gendered perspective, but also, like, talk about love. Like, she talks all the time how she's been with her partner for years and they have, like, separate bank accounts and, like, how women should always have money ready to go in case they have to get out. Like, fuck. I get being prepared, but also, Jesus, you're giving me anxiety. Like, yes, be smart and be prepared, but it's, like, kind of like when you get married and you're thinking about divorce. That's what it sounds like. Like, why are you married if you're always thinking about divorce? You know, it's one thing to know that you can get divorced, but if you're always thinking about divorce, that's the anxiety I get from Chelsea and everybody else. Like, are you guys always thinking about your partner switching it up on you or something? Because I know I don't do that. That's the thing. I don't do that. I am a good person. So I assumed I married somebody as good as me. That's the point of getting married, is like I married somebody as good as me, and I would never do that to somebody. So I also married somebody who would never do that to somebody. Right? Now they're thinking, but you don't know that. And I'm thinking, well, then maybe you should marry them. Because it's not to say that my partner can't do that, but it's to say that I hopefully had the discernment and wisdom to marry somebody whose values are similar to mine. And again, I exist so that if for other people like me must exist, right? And that's what it's about. Now, again, these people could be, who knows, they could be abusive as fuck. But right now, in just the way they're being depicted, I like it.
Now I cannot imagine that life.
Bum, 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 bum. Cute. Okay, I really liked that video, actually. I'm so glad it came up on my feed. I'll link it in the chat, of course. I love that. I think there's something really beautiful to be said about like when you have healthy dynamics with money and how to make it work in your advantage, but also, you know, how challenging it can be when you're trying to be a little bit more self-aware, I guess, about how you're engaging in a system that is like deeply unethical and like how to best make it work for you and your values. And that's why you have to sit down and ask yourself, like, what are my values? How do I want to show up in the world? How do I want to spend money? And not being worried about being perfect. It's always about harm reduction. I think when we have these conversations, people just start getting judgy about like, oh, well, how do you spend your money? That's not the question. You shouldn't be asking me how I spend my money. You should be asking you how to spend your money. I'm telling you to go home and ask yourself, how are we spending our money? Not, well, how are you spending? Don't compare yourself to other people. I don't give a fuck what other people are doing. What are you doing? Notice how these couples didn't compare themselves to other people. They were just solely focused on like what they were doing. That introspection and extrospection is so important. What am I doing? What am I doing? Who cares what other people are doing? Because like when you're keeping up with the Joneses, when you're trying to compare yourself to other people, you're going to get distracted. What am I doing? How are we spending money as a family? How do we want to show up in the world? Okay.